They just unsealed files the powerful spent 10 years trying to hide. Not rumors, not leaks, real courtroom records with real names inside. People who sat with presidents, people who control billions, people who never expected daylight. And here's the part nobody's asking. If nothing illegal happened, why did the best lawyers in the world fight so hard to keep these pages sealed? Because in federal court, silence isn't protection, it's fear. Tonight we expose what those documents were never meant to reveal. They just released documents most people believed would never see the light of day. Pages that stayed hidden for years. Pages filled with names you recognize, faces you've seen on magazine covers, people who've shaped governments, controlled billions, and sat beside presidents. But the real question isn't who's mentioned. The real question is, who fought to keep this hidden for so long? Because when you've spent time inside federal courtrooms, you learn something important. A cover-up isn't revealed by what's missing. It's revealed by who desperately tries to keep it sealed. This isn't rumor. This isn't internet gossip. These are sworn legal records, and they just became public evidence. Let's start with what actually happened. In the last few days, the United States District Court in New York released another batch of documents connected to the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell civil case, a case that's been at the center of global attention for nearly a decade. These aren't new criminal charges. Epstein is dead. Maxwell is already serving 20 years in federal prison. From a criminal standpoint, that chapter looks closed. But here's what most people miss. Civil cases create a different kind of accountability. They force testimony under oath. They compel depositions. They build records prosecutors can still use even when a defendant dies or stays silent. And that record just grew larger. The documents include witness statements and victim testimony describing individuals who were present at Epstein's properties, who traveled on his planes, and who attended events where minors were allegedly involved. Names connected through proximity, not proof, but presence. And that matters legally. Being named in a deposition does not mean guilt. It doesn't even mean liability. What it means is something more technical: nexus. Nexus is the connection point in an investigation. It's not evidence of crime, it's evidence of closeness to activity under scrutiny. And in federal cases, proximity is where investigations begin. So ask yourself something. If these documents were meaningless, why keep them sealed for almost 10 years? Why would elite legal teams fight to keep redactions in place? The answer is simple. Because proximity creates exposure. Exposure to lawsuits, exposure to reputations, and in some cases, exposure to serious criminal risk under federal trafficking laws involving minors, laws with mandatory prison time and no expiration when victims are under 18. Yet the media often treats this like celebrity scandal, billionaires with bad friends, powerful people making poor choices. That's not what this is. This is a case study in how wealth delays accountability, how non-disclosure agreements silence victims, how law firms, PR machines, and institutions use procedure not to protect justice, but to bury it. First, they fight subpoenas. Then they fight depositions. Then they fight unsealing. And when all else fails, they settle quietly and lock victims behind contracts of silence. But this time, that wall cracked. Not because someone felt generous, but because journalists and legal advocates forced the issue under the public's right to know. And when sealed records become public, something powerful happens. Pressure. People who once stayed silent start getting calls from boards, from investors, from reporters, from governments. And suddenly, silence becomes more dangerous than truth. This is where real cases begin.
So where does this leave us? With documents that are no longer hidden, with victims whose voices are finally reaching the public, and with powerful people who may soon have to explain their proximity to one of the darkest networks in modern history. Unsealing files doesn't send anyone to prison. It doesn't undo years of damage, and it doesn't automatically deliver justice. What it does is create opportunity. Opportunity for investigators to reopen paths that were once blocked. Opportunity for prosecutors to trace phone records, travel logs, money trails, and sworn testimony. Opportunity for witnesses who stayed silent to finally speak when pressure replaces comfort. Because in cases like this, justice doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives slowly. One document, one testimony, one broken NDA at a time. The real question now isn't who appears in the papers. The real question is whether institutions have the courage to act on what's written inside them. History shows us something important. Power protects people until it doesn't. Money silences voices until it can't. And secrets survive only until light reaches them. More files will surface, more pressure will build, and more names may be forced into the open. This story isn't finished. It's only entering its most dangerous chapter. So stay alert, stay informed, and never accept a system where the powerful live above the law. If you want the truth behind the world's darkest cases, if you want stories they don't want questioned, if you believe secrets should never stay buried, then stay with us. Subscribe, like, and share, because the next revelation is already coming. Welcome to World Dark Files.